stream. Today we have Josh Reason, Josh.co with us on the program. How you feel, my man?
What's up, man? I'm good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat with you all.
Yeah, absolutely. Veteran in the space. Obviously, now getting into the building side of things too. So there's plenty of stuff to talk about with your endeavor with DNX.com, as well as getting your take on recent events and sales and sharing some of your domaining expertise. And with us, as usual, is Ishmaeli. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great. Excited to have Josh on. Josh is a legend, someone that I've learned quite a bit from. We've had confrontations, agreements, all type of good stuff. So I feel like a brother is in the house. You know what I mean? So, and yeah, I'm excited to discuss some of his strategies and dive deeper.
Ooh, confrontations. I'm out of the loop here. Let's hash these out.
No,
on the
no,
pod,
not in a negative,
well,
not in a negative way.
I can be your therapist here.
Not in a negative way. Maybe that was the wrong choice of words, but maybe that was the wrong word. But Josh is someone who's very open-minded and very direct. That's how I read him, and he's a straight shooter. And sometimes I'll disagree with some of his views, but overall, I think from afar, I've sort of I have an assessment of his personality, and I'll say he's a straight shooter, and I like that. I really like
that. No. It's right. I mean, I'm very direct. I'm not afraid to share my opinion. Not afraid to have disagreements with people. For me, it doesn't change the way that I may or may not feel about someone as a person. If you can't, have some sort of discourse where you disagree with the other person's opinion, then I mean, I don't have time for it. Honestly,
it's literally brown lipping is what we call it, ass kissing, and there's a lot of that in the domain space. And you stood out. I mean, just the way you described yourself as Josh.co itself speaks to your rebellious nature, because you have a domain industry where everyone swears that at the time, maybe 5 years ago, everyone was like, it's .com or nothing. And there was this guy, Josh.co. So
yeah, dude. People say to me all the time, like, yeah, I mean, like, you're a big investor in .co. So, and I'm like, no, actually, I'm not. I'm like 95% .com. But
there you go.
I have no
using the name as a misdirection. Very clever.
Yeah, exactly. Misdirection. Go after the .cos. You don't want the .coms. Trust me.
Yeah. Brilliant move. Well, guys, it's tomorrow is $5.com Fridays at Unstoppable. So head over and get 100 .coms for $5 each. We've also got $5.50 transfers in. Cheapest transfers you'll find in the industry. And we've also got a referral program going on, so you can invite your friends and get some free transfers as well. So a ton of great stuff coming on at Unstoppable. So go over and check those out.
Is that unlimited amount of transfers, or is that 100 as well?
The limit is $11,000 in discounts, which is
2,000 something.
2,000 domains.
Yeah, 2,000.
So it's a lot of domains. Yeah, it's like honestly way too generous. We need to reel that back. And I should be holding those cards close to my chest. But anyway, get out there and take advantage of us while you still can, because those are not gonna be around forever. Yeah, Josh, have you tried us out?
I've been following your X posts a lot, so I've seen a lot of the UI, but I haven't played around myself. But I think I will soon. I'll probably do. I might take advantage of some of those transfers, Brady. You never know.
Well, that leads to
you will be hard pressed to find a better deal.
Yeah, let me ask you, why do you see value in the transfer ins? Let's use that as an educational moment. I mean, the price is attractive, but what is? I mean, you obviously you're saving money, and I think also the fact that those names are automatically going to be on chain is an added bonus at no cost.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think it depends on what you want and what you're doing with your domains to a lot. Like, to a large extent as well. If you're like have a large portfolio and you generate revenue from like parking, for example,
Hmm.
that would be like a no-brainer in my opinion to go and seek out the cheapest transfers that you can and move them to a place like Unstoppable. I think that if you're not part of the Afternic fast transfer network and you're primarily focused on sales, then it can be, that's something that you need to consider, because I think there is a slight drop off in sales velocity if you're not names are not registered at a fast transfer partner. So I would be slightly concerned about that. But at the same time, I think that when you're saving essentially 50%
Correct.
on the renewal cost, it probably still makes sense to transfer a lot of names if you're going to be able to take advantage of a pretty large discount.
Yeah, definitely.
And then like, listen, at the end of the day, there aren't that many registrars that are building nice, like modern UIs that are easy to use. I've seen the Unstoppable UI, UX, and it's good. It's clean. And when you're managing a lot of domain names, you want to have a good, clean interface. You want to be able to do things in bulk. You want to be able to cut down on the time it takes to make changes, to view the certain things that you want to view. Maybe it could be like pulling in, various data points, or like you said, having names on chain. If that's something that you're passionate about, if that's something that you see a future in, then I would definitely take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think the cost savings is the top of the hierarchy, and then the added
For
perks, for sure.
Sure.
But I
Yeah,
like the
like,
fact that you
listen,
pointed out the pros and cons.
I think that also like the getting domains on chain is gonna be cool. I mean, is there a single domain right now that is on like a .com domain that is on chain? I'm not particularly familiar with like where we're at. I know that Unstoppable are maybe one of maybe two people that are leading the way in that regard. But are there any domains yet on chain?
There are. Every domain that's transferred in or registered at Unstoppable is automatically placed on chain. And what that means mechanically is that obviously you have a registrar, these are ICANN standard domains. And for each one of those ICANN domains, DNS domains, mint a token twin for each of them. So Josh.co comes in, we mint a Josh.co NFT on the Polygon blockchain. And this allows you to send and receive crypto to a Josh.co. If you type it into Coinbase or Phantom Wallet or any of our other thousands, it also means that that listing shows up automatically on OpenSea, which is the largest marketplace. So if you have like Web3 related domains, you can get extra visibility by having those listings be visible on OpenSea. And then later down the line, things like loans against domains, fractionalization, securitization, all that's unlocked as well. So yes, there are many tens of thousands of domains that are on chain right now. And we're seeing more and more sales by the day.
How does the transfer
that's
work
sort of the nuts and bolts.
That, Brady? How's the transfer work in like with that at this time? So if I went to OpenSea and bought Josh.co after it was transferred in, would that transfer like an NFT transfers today?
Yeah. So within the Unstoppable registrar, like if you're buying through our marketplace, the token follows the domain around. So if you do a push on our marketplace, then both the underlying domain and the NFT get transferred to the same person. And so they're totally in sync. So there's no risk of like someone buying the NFT but not getting the domain. All of that is totally in sync. However, if you transfer out, so you get a sale on Cito MLS, and then fast transfer occurs out of the registrar, then we burn the NFT. We just delete the NFT because once it goes to another registrar, we can't ensure that the NFT is in sync anymore. However, we're talking with some big name registrars at the moment that want to tokenize their domains. So we'll be basically providing an API for other registrars to tokenize. And that means that even if we transfer between two different registrars, you can retain the on-chain features. We don't delete the token. And so you can still have all the functionality on Web3, even if it's transferred to another registrar that is using our tokenization services. So very soon, that benefit will extend beyond the Unstoppable Domains registrar. But currently, we're just dogfooding and proving out all the systems internally.
That's cool. That's cool. What do you guys see as the primary as the primary benefit to being on Web3? Do you think it's I know you've talked a lot about domain liquidity. Do you think it's just easier to trade?
Well, I think
they are easier to trade. Oh, go ahead, Ish.
No, I mean, I think, we're still very early. But I think if anyone is applying some foresight, it's just another added layer of utility to the Web2 tech stack, right? Just like how email enables Web2 to be more functional, right? Not everyone adds email to a domain, right? Even though a domain is capable of using email. Domain investors definitely don't have all their emails set up, right? All the MX records or whatever, right? But just knowing that you have this Web3 functionality, there'll be applications for it. And from an investment perspective, there are a lot of similarities between, they're both digital assets when you talk about NFTs and, domain names, right? Some people argue that domain names are the original NFTs, right? In a centralized format. So I think it's exciting because it's going to bring a new crop of domain investors and buyers, people that want to trade in crypto. It's more distribution. If we start seeing domains in Web3 native marketplaces like OpenSea, Magic Eden, then there are more eyeballs that are looking at those names. But it's still very, very early. And like you said earlier, the collateralization of these names and tokenization enables that, right? So, and as the blockchain evolves, I think we'll be we'll be able to discover other applications of domains having that Web3 functionality for sure.
Yeah.
And building all of this on chain.
Go ahead, Brady. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh. All right. Doing all of this on chain, in an open source and composable fashion means that we can iterate much, much faster. We can plug into existing protocols that are already out there for taking loans against NFTs, for example. Or fractionalization, securitization. There's already prior art out there that we can plug into, and we don't need to build it all in-house. And we're like getting away from this like walled garden approach in Web2, where if you want a new feature, you have to wait for the product team to prioritize that internally. Whereas on chain, you can take the initiative or crowdfund some money or plug into existing other protocols. If you don't like Unstoppable solution, you can take it somewhere else. And this just means like the rate of innovation and actually unlocking like financial value of these domains is accelerated at a pace that we've never seen before. So greater liquidity, faster transactions, cheaper fees. All these things are made possible when we come on chain. We still have a long way to go. We're very early innings here, but there's a lot more to come down the pipe.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of found very interesting over the course of 2021, 2022, when NFTs really started to get big, right? With like Bored Ape Yacht Club, Punks, and then everything else that cropped up under the sun, including Web3 domains like ENS, was that there are a lot of people out there that enjoy trading in a Web3 environment, especially assets or items that they think have value.
Correct.
And that they can build like community around and and suddenly like it becomes like very addictive to a lot of people.
Correct.
But why those same people aren't able to like translate those skills over to
Domains.
something that is like clearly far more valuable and
Mhm.
clearly has far more application, like Web2 domains, is so strange to me.
I think I know why. As someone who's dabbled in both worlds, and I can say that I've onboarded quite a few people into the Web2 world. It's, one, they look at this as a replacement instead of an enhancement, right? So they're looking at a .eth as, and this is the false way of looking at it, as this is going to replace .com. It's like we're going to go from a centralized world to a decentralized world. So it's almost like a delusional, um, speculative mindset, right? And they've also, for lack of better words, been psyoped into thinking that way, right? Because it favors the DAO and all these other entities that don't push back on that mindset. So you're looking at people that want this decentralized world, but they're trading on an open sea, which is a centralized marketplace, right? So domains have sort of like been a submarine that hasn't been too visible to that audience, but some of them get it now. I think it's sort of like a gateway drug into into a more solid asset class and domain names, myself included. I made a shitload of money from Bored Apes and NFTs, spent a lot of money, speculated a lot, above average, and I was able to diversify some of those profits into domain names. And I also speculated on .eth names. I didn't work out too well. But I think it's sort of like there are a lot of similarities, and I think the domain industry is primarily lacked in marketing. It's a bit clunky and old school and perceived as sort of like, oh, this is Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. Just those terminologies alone make Web 2 seem like, oh, it's in the past. You know what I mean? PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. Right? Who wants to play with the PlayStation 2? Right? You know what I mean? So yeah, we just need to keep creating more awareness and education.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was pretty heavily involved in the NFTs, as you probably remember as well.
Right.
Like from GameFi to DeFi to NFTs, like everything. I had one of the biggest Zed run stables in that existed. Traded that a lot and was big into all of that, and it just it just goes to show that if you can get the community aspect right, people can rally around just about anything. I mean, like some of the NFT collections that ended up having some pretty insane volume, I mean, is a joke. Like it's literally a joke, and we look back on it today and we think, "Wow,
What were we thinking?"
insane." So yeah, if you're able to, but again, like there's something to the simplicity of all of that as well, right? It's like being able to trade a bunch of JPEGs is very simple, right? You look at a couple of attributes and then you decide whether or not it's valuable, and
Right.
there's a level of simplicity there. When you look at domains, you're talking about a lot more. There's a lot more attributes if you want,
Right.
a lot more traits that you need to be looking for.
Right. I mean, you can look at what happened with Web3 domains. I mean, Unstoppable was able to sell a lot of them, right? They're still selling them. When you look at something like, ENS, millions of .eth names were sold. And what's unique about their approach versus conventional or traditional Web2 domain names is, that community was very strong. You had clubs, the digits, the four letters, and these are familiar terminology in traditional domains. But I think it was the perfect storm. You have social media where people could also connect with each other. People had spaces, Clubhouse. I mean, I think if you remember, Dot Club did very well when I started talking about Dot Club because there was a format to speak and speculate, and other people could sort of like agree or disagree.
Yeah, I
And I think even now with traditional domains, here we are doing a podcast. These things were very, very rare back then. I mean, if you look at some of those blogs, no disrespect, I mean, these are all legends, but the UX UI is still reflective of the 90s and the early 2000s. They don't look as appealing, right? That's not going to attract a new crop of Gen Z domainers, right? It's still the same looking
No,
blog from the early
look at expired,
2000s.
look at expired domains. It's like the number one tool in domain.
Exactly.
It looks like
Exactly.
it pulled out of the 1980s. Yeah.
Yeah, we need more innovation for sure.
Yeah.
Which leads to what you're doing. You're doing the DNX marketplace. I know that has been sort of like an evolving thing, and it's now finally done. I remember speaking with you last December, and you're like, "We're almost there."
Yeah.
It seems to me like you wanted to make it perfect. Give us an update on that.
Yeah. We don't need to talk too much about it. I don't like to like promote my own shit too much, if you like. But yeah, I mean, to sum it up, in December, I was trying to get it built out. We
Right.
finally got it done in the middle of January. But to answer your question in terms of like get it all complete, like I feel like we're probably like 5% through
Mm,
the entire roadmap. Like we've got way more things that we're trying to build. The nice thing is that we've got we have that kind of like MVP out there, and that's what I consider it today. It's kind of like that MVP,
right.
and it's now a good enough product that we can attract some users here and there,
Right.
and then we can just kind of like quietly build on that in the background, and hopefully start continue to build something that's cool, and useful to domain investors. And I think that today it's pretty useful, and hopefully tomorrow it can be more useful, and then the
Mostly
next day
correct.
it can be more useful again. And at the end of the day, that's all I'm trying to accomplish, is to build something that domain investors, and just not just domain investors, but domain buyers in general find useful.
Brady, are you there? Can you?
You got that hotspot Wi-Fi.
Yeah, Brady's popping in and out. It seems like he's frozen. Well, I mean, look, you built another marketplace in the past, DNWE, and you sold that.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that experience that you're applying to DNX?
Yeah. Building products is tough, first and
Correct.
foremost. With the DNWE, it was a little bit niche to be able to really grow beyond where we grew it, or at least I found it difficult. We explored a few different business models, but investor to investor sales certainly has a cap,
Right.
and I think that we kind of reached that cap a few times, and going beyond that was difficult. I think that what I've built today is something that hopefully I can expand out to end users, so that end users can search for domains that they want to buy as well.
Right.
With the NWE, I built it purely because I had a portfolio and I didn't see anywhere I didn't see a platform that I could list my domains if I wanted to just sell to investors. So I was like, the option was Name Pros at the time, like selling on like a Name Pros or like a Twitter or like private Discord channels or that kind of thing. So I was like, why don't I build a platform where domainers can sell to domainers? And it was popular. We made a little bit of money,
Right.
and it's still being used today. So
That's amazing. I think one of the things I always tell people is like there's so many ways to approach domain investing, and you seem to be taking a blended approach as an investor and also a builder. Right?
Building is fun. It's
For
difficult,
sure.
but it's fun.
Right. And we have a lot of marketplaces in the domain industry now. There's DNX, there's GoDaddy, that range in between. There's so many others.
Mm.
What do you think are sort of like the fundamentals, the must-have of the marketplace? So someone who's at an exit and is building an innovative one, like what is a marketplace? What are the must-haves?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of must-haves, but I would say the biggest must-have is a lot of domain names. It's like the chicken and the egg
The
situation.
inventory.
Yeah, it's a large amount of inventory, and that's one of the reasons why when we were building out DNX, it's like I'm not trying to compete with anyone. I'm trying to
Right,
partner with everyone, bring all the listings into one central location, and make it super easy to browse.
right.
Um, so yeah, from a marketplace standpoint, I'm going to talk about the obvious stuff. Like if you've got millions and millions of domain names on a marketplace, you need to have good filters, right? It's like, duh, obviously you need to have good filters. You can't, you're not, nobody's going to want to go through millions of domains to find the one that they want. So you need to find ways to filter those.
Right.
And there are a lot of ways to do that, right? And I think that, talking to domain investors and asking what filters they like, or talking to end users and asking what kind of filters they want to see, you got to listen. You got to listen, and then you got to implement.
I think we're about to see a lot of marketplaces because people are going to figure out I can vibe code one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you do any vibe coding for DNX, or do you regret that you built it at the time you did? Because it seems like anything could be built now with a prompt. At
Dude,
least it accelerates the development, right? Um,
I was talking to a friend about this today. Like I think that complex software still is not easy to build, even with vibe coding. Uh,
sure,
I think that, uh, especially if you want to build a complex kind of like domain ecosystem that has like a marketplace management, all these kind of things. But what I do think is that you can, you have your team, you start building the infrastructure
the front
of
end.
the software, and then like adding in, let's call them apps, adding in apps into your infrastructure through vibe coding is a big deal. Like it's easy to do, and I think it's going to increase the speed of development like 100-fold.
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. I think maybe domain marketplaces aren't the best examples, but there's a lot of positive disruption that's
Mm,
occurring because of vibe coded.
100%.
uh, and I think it's only going to get better. Chat GPT, Perplexity, Anthropic, they're constantly introducing new models.
Yeah.
The LLM is becoming much more advanced, and as we advance towards like AGI, I think that the applications like vibe coding will be much smoother. GPU is improving, so it's exciting. I also feel like it opens up a new realm for domain investing, right? Which is, how do you all these AI and vibe coded sites? They're going to need domain names. What are your views on that?
Yeah, my friend sent me a product this morning. Someone from outside of the domain industry, actually a friend of mine from the finance world, uh, sent me mgx.dev. Have you
No,
seen
there's
that?
so many of them. I can't
Yeah,
keep up.
and he was saying like this is wild, dude. Like
MGX.dev. I'll check it out.
mgx.dev. Yeah, I think it was number one like product of the week at Product Hunt. But yeah, it's like another one of those kind of like bold or
Right,
uh, right. And um, I feel like every day a new one drops, and people are more shocked by like what it can do and how
right,
quickly it can do them, and just like the scope of how complex some of these apps are that you can just build like this. It's crazy.
right.
Um, yeah,
Yo,
dude.
yeah,
I love
Brady just put it
the
up.
social angle that they're. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you clearly.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I turned on my video, but yeah, I like the social angle of this one. So you've got like all the templates from other people that are building, so you can like, I think this makes iteration way faster because you can build off of some prior art from other people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I like this a lot.
No, so
Well,
my
Josh,
theory
I'm
is.
curious.
Go ahead, Brady.
Go ahead, Ish.
No, go ahead, Brady. I've said quite a lot.
Well, I was gonna backtrack a bit and talk about the whole DNWE. I'm curious. Why do we need a dedicated wholesale exchange? Why can't domainers use use traditional marketplaces for their wholesale needs? Obviously, the pricing would be different. But if you hide it like in the auctions interface where only domainers are coming and then retail isn't venturing over there, it seems to me like you would be able to accomplish a very similar thing, and then you're not bifurcating all the liquidity across several a new marketplace.
Yeah, I literally spoke about exactly this the other day on a Twitter space. Ish might have been in there actually. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was.
I literally said almost word for word, Ray, is that I think the best wholesale marketplace today is Afternic. And I agree with you. It's like you don't want to necessarily limit who can buy your name when you need liquidity. But part of the reason why I initially built DNWE as a wholesale marketplace is because I actually had this notion, and other people still have that same kind of belief, that I wanted to keep my retail prices public while having like a outlet for domain like investor trading, if you like, meaning that I might have my domain on DNWE for $1,000, where someone like Ish can come along and buy it. But at the same time, it may be available on Afternic for like 20 grand, so that if an end user decides they want to purchase it, they buy it for 20 grand, and then
Right.
I can pull it from the domain to domainer marketplace. So that was like one of the big reasons why I wanted to do that, and I wasn't the only one, and that had that kind of like notion. Other investors do that all the time. They just go through like a forum like NamePros or what have you. But to answer your question, the logical way to do it is you need liquidity, change your price on Afternic, change it to a wholesale price, and you're going to get the most eyeballs possible on that. And or any other marketplace that has a combination of end users and investors buying.
Yeah, this is a core thing we keep bumping up against. Our Web3 sensibilities say make everything extremely transparent. People want to see offer history. They want to see how much a domain was registered for and when it was registered. And then every domainer I talk to says, no, don't do that. Don't screw the pooch by telling retail all of these insider secrets about how much edge we're getting against them versus wholesale. But I do think there's a massive opportunity to offer people a better experience there. And one example of this, I was talking to one of my teammates the other day, and I'm saying like, why don't we have social trading but for domains? Like it's very popular in Web3 to have copy trading platforms. You can follow a trader and just ape into whatever they're doing. You can basically have a live feed of all these positions that are getting traded back and forth. And this would serve like a huge discovery function for new domainers who are looking to, stay abreast of the latest trends and, look at like different clustering of, who's doing what, where, like who's specializing. And then you can do all of this and like, integrate it with the news and see how like, whatever the current thing on X is influencing the registration patterns for a given day. I think that's like it's a very interesting, social angle on domaining that most legacy domainers would absolutely hate and not buy into because it would expose a lot of their, trade secrets. But new guys would absolutely eat up. And I think it's this arbitrage. It's sort of like Costco versus Walmart or any other grocery store, right? It's like it's the same dilemma where retail is like kind of understands that there's wholesale pricing. They just have to work a little harder to get it. You know, you got to pay for a Costco card. It's like $150 a year. You got to go to Costco. It's like a slightly worse experience, way less convenient, but you get the wholesale prices in the same way. Like domainers could be working a little hard, or, you know, even retail, you know, domain buyers could be working a little harder, get the wholesale prices from Costco, even though, you know, retailers like Walmart hate Costco. So, you know, we're thinking more about being like the Costco for domainers, and really like opening up and making everything quite transparent and low cost, you know, potentially at the expense of retail oriented, domain marketplaces. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So I think that you're 100% right that traditional, let's call them traditional domain investors that have been in the space for a while, are the opposite of transparent. And it's not, and it's like intentional, very intentional. And then, you know, the ones that are good are also very well off. Like, make no mistake about it, they do very, very well. And they don't like the transparency, because they think that they're going to lose their edge, because they have all the data, they know what sells, they know what names sell at retail, they know ways to get domains cheap, and they know naming conventions that might not be obvious, and they don't want to make any of this information accessible, because they don't want to entice competition. It's very, very, very common in our space. I'm kind of take the opposite approach, because I find that you can be extremely transparent as an individual, because at the end of the day, most people don't listen to you anyway. But when you build a platform out that is 100% transparent, I think that becomes a different story, and I think that is how the industry grows, and that is how you bring in more people that you're talking about into the space, is through transparency, and it's also the only way that people can really learn. So yeah, I think that that's a good idea.
And let me chime in on that. There's a lot of data out right now. You know, we have Wiz. You can tell when a name was registered. You have domain tools that can tell you when, you know, the registrar has been changed and things like that. But when you start getting into specific details, like what someone paid for a name, and you know how it's perceived, because human psychology is still very, very important. Like, nobody is going to feel comfortable paying 70 grand for a name that someone paid 2,000 for. It definitely will impact conversions. and I think that it's more of a net negative for the space than a net positive. But you know, you can definitely be transparent, but you also have to factor in human psychology. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be transparent enough or foolish enough to tell someone, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to sell your name for 50,000. I just picked it up for $500 a month ago." Like, that doesn't serve the buyer or the seller in any way. They're going to feel jaded, and you're going to sell less names. And it's domainers are not going to, in my opinion, embrace that level of transparency. But the more insights you show, the better. And I think it goes back to what we've always said, Brady. Education is important. You know what I mean? This is what GoDaddy's been doing by buying Domain Name Academy, and adding it into their ecosystem. I think education is how you onboard new people, not necessarily full irrelevant transparency.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to switch gears here a little bit and talk about the recent tariffs and sort of macro uncertainty that we're seeing as of last week. Obviously, we saw a significant dip in the markets over the past couple of months in anticipation of that, culminating last Tuesday with the announcements, and then the subsequent rollbacks I'm wondering, Josh, if you've seen any impact on your domain sales, or the domain market broadly, and what you expect going forward. Obviously, domains are a lot less liquid than the stock market, which we're seeing many trillions of dollars erased from over the past couple of months. But yeah, are you expecting a slowdown as well in your sales?
I have had a slowdown in sales this month. It really started slowing down in the first week of April for me. But again, my portfolio is about 5,500 names, so it's not large enough to be able to get any real concrete takeaways until you're at 50,000 plus names. I would say these kind of like drier spells can happen regardless of the market. But I think that in general, retail sales, from my understanding from talking with friends with larger portfolios, has been a little bit slower in April because of this macro uncertainty, economic uncertainty. I will say that on the wholesale level, things never seem to slow down. We saw a bit of last time I remember seeing kind of like a pretty substantial panic of this magnitude was when COVID hit, and for the first, I would say, like month, when everything was getting locked down, everyone was shutting shop. I remember sales just like dropped off a cliff from a retail standpoint, but they stayed strong, and then they got even stronger, and then they were stronger than they'd ever been before in a pretty short period of time. And the wholesale market never slowed down. It stayed consistent the entire time. So yeah, I think that it is important to differentiate between the retail market and the wholesale market. The wholesale market never seems to slow down. The retail market does have its ups and downs.
Josh, you mentioned that you have 5,500 domain names. I have 3,000. I remember Braden on a Spaces earlier today said he has 1,500, 1,600. You talk to different domainers, you get different numbers. What is the ideal approach? Are you working your way towards 50,000, or are you working your way down towards less?
I don't have a number that in mind. I'm buying names when I see opportunities. I'm not pushing to buy names if I don't feel like the names are worth buying, whether they're hand registrations, or whether they're mid-tier buys, or whether they're top-tier buys. So I'm not thinking about it that way. I know that a lot of people do think about it that way. There are different models that work really well. Like my business partner and very good friend, Josh Schoen, he doesn't have very many names, but he has extremely high quality names. And I can tell you that he does very, very well each year. And then I've got friends that have, 100,000 plus names, and they don't have.
They've lost their hair, right?
Some of them have never had a six-figure sale. They've never had a six-figure sale when these guys are doing, multiple seven figures every year in sales, just from, knocking out those little, $5,000 sales daily. Sometimes they're having 5, 10, 15 sales a day.
Wow.
In that range. It goes back to what you said earlier in the podcast. There's not one way of doing things. There's multiple ways of doing things. I kind of dabble in all areas. And I would say that I'm not like a super, super expert in one specific field, and more just like generally quite good at most, like the high end, the mid tier, and the low end.
So you mentioned that most of your domains are .com, which is very typical, but obviously we're seeing what's happening with .ai. I listened to you on another podcast mention that you are bullish on certain TLDs or CCTLDs like .gg. Give us an overview of what the mix of your domain names are. Are you pulling back from, say, .io, Are you buying more .orgs? Are you doubling down on .co? What is your approach?
Yeah. So my number one search every day, the priority search every day is .com, and then my secondary search is .ai and .org. And then after that, if I'm feeling like I want to, get a little bit more rambunctious on the day, I'll look at .xyz, .io, and .co. And then if I'm trying to like dive even deeper down into the value chain, I then will look at like .gg, .vc, .so, and then I'm even looking at some of the new GTLDs like .app, .tech. But I'm following data. Like this is you go and have a look at the Afternic report for last year at the top TLDs that sold. .app was on there, .tech is on there, .ai, .io, .co. Those TLDs are all on there. I'm not investing as much in .io just because I feel like .ai took a lot of thunder
Right.
from the .io market. All these tech companies that gravitated to .io now want to be on .ai because they want to incorporate some sort of AI into their product. Helps with raising funding. It's obviously trendy. So yeah, I mean, of the names in my portfolio, I have like, I don't know, call it around 100 .ai names, around 100 .io names. I'll tell you, .co, I have around 100 .co names. So, most of it's .com.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Brady, did you have anything you wanted to add in?
Well, I'm curious, how your work style and temperament and expertise plays into the style that fits you best. Obviously, you said you're a generalist, you dabble in a bunch of different things. It sounds like, one of the main pitfalls that new domainers fall into is hand dragging a bunch, not having a great grasp of the English language and getting some sub quality names. Um, you know, and obviously most newbies have strict capital limitations. So I'm wondering, like, given those constraints and like the work style and how much time and expertise people can devote to these, like, where you think that, they should be dedicating their time in terms of like style and TLDs and acquisition mechanisms.
Yeah. Honestly, the way that I think about it is like they like these newer investors that have limited capital. They're they're attracted to things like $5 Fridays, right? Because it's $5. It's cheap. This is an easy and cheap way to enter into the domain space. But that for me, based on what I know today, I don't think that that's what I would recommend someone that I cared about to get into the trying to get into the industry. I don't recommend that they would go that route because I think that actually registering good .com domain names is one of the hardest things that you could possibly do.
It's a skill issue.
Yeah, it's a skill issue. It's so hard, I mean, like, some of these investors that I was just talking about, some of my friends that are amazing domain investors, they're not profitable with the hand reg game. Like, they struggle with the hand reg game. I'm testing out a few things at the moment with hand registering, and I don't know what the results will be. I'm not 100% convinced that I'll be overly profitable. We'll see. It's hard. It's really hard. So to answer your question, I would focus on SLD investing. That's what I like to call it, which is get really strong SLDs and the best extension that you can have, and then sort those extensions into tiers, and kind of like what I just said to Ish is, I have my tiers. I have .com at the top, and then I have .ai, .org, and then I have .io, .co, .xyz. Then I have my .net, .ggs, .vcs, and as I go further down that funnel, I want to ideally be getting stronger SLDs. So, in .com, I might be happy to get, a 2-word brandable registered in maybe like 10 TLDs. Maybe that's a great name, and it probably is. And then, in .ai, maybe my metric is a little bit higher. I want, a 1-word SLD that's registered in, 75 plus TLDs or whatever. But then when I get a bit further down that funnel and I'm at .gg, I'm still focusing on the SLD, but now my requirements are a lot higher, right? Now I'm not really looking at the SLDs that are registered in 75 TLDs. Now I'm interested in the ones that are registered in 200 plus TLDs, the ones that, you type into Crunchbase and there are dozens of, companies using that brand, and you type into LinkedIn and there are thousands of companies, branding on that term. Like, that's what I would focus on. I would focus on trying to buy strong SLDs, and in a TLD that you can afford, right? If you can't afford a .ai that's costing 10 grand at wholesale, go down a couple levels. There are other TLDs that are used today, and we just talked about .dev, right? There's a bunch of products going out on .dev. .dev is actually and actually Afternic released their report for last year, and guess what was on there? To the surprise of many people, .dev was on there. It was like a
Right.
top 10. It was like a top 10 TLD that nobody talks about. I bought a .dev the other day. I went on DNX and I bought onchain.dev, and it was $1,500. And I guarantee you that I'll sell that name.
Let me ask you a question. How do you play trends? Right now, some people are going wide with Agentic. There's a domainer, Luke. He said he bought 100,
Yeah.
hand registered 100 Agentic names and sold one for 9,888, agenticomp.com, which sort of like covers the cost of the rest of them, right? Do you take that type of approach where you go wide over a trend, try to register as many good names as you can find? Because, I mean, if it's a newer trend, then there are more likelihoods of getting hand registrations, right? And
Yeah.
how do you approach that? Or do you just avoid trends in general?
I think that if you're early and you can get some of the best keyword combinations in emerging trends, then you can make money.
How early though? Do you wait till the trend is sort of like mushroomed off, or you're thinking 5 years ahead?
Yeah. See, like, would I get right now, with everything that I know about domains and combos, would I register Agentic names at this moment? No, I wouldn't. They're all the good combinations are gone already. So like,
I just registered 10 this morning. I cut the FOMO.
am I
Not gonna make it.
No, well, I'm saving them for tomorrow.
Like, am I saying that there are no possible Agentic names that you can go out and hand register and be profitable on? No, they're not.
Hey, I registered Agentic hackathons today.
Hackathons?
I'm just forever dumbfounded by some of these sales that you see reported on Twitter. I mean, I'm looking at I just searched on Twitter agenticconnect.com for $3,500.
I think these names have been picked up by other speculators as well, in my opinion. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, perfectly reasonable. But it's just like, I don't know, there's a long tail of names that I'm always amazed at, like, wow, I cannot believe these sold for 4 figures. Meanwhile, like, those are probably flukes, and you're probably overfitting if you're,
but that's
also half-baked Agentic name is going to sell for those.
And that's why
flukes more often than not.
Yeah, and that's why I'm curious about Josh's approach on it. Like, do you because to me that's more like playing roulette in Vegas. You're trying to get one, out of 50 to hit, right? And it covers the cost of the rest of the 50 hand regs. Is that a viable, sustainable strategy, or most times you're going to strike out?
I've spent more time in the industry, I prefer to try and get the best possible name that is relative to that trend, as opposed to register a bunch of names that are like suboptimal. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I'll give you an exclusive. Like, for example, when the Agentic thing started blowing up, I bought Agentics.com.
Oh wow.
So, and it was expensive, but if that's going to be a big thing, then I like, in an ideal world, I want to own the best possible version of it. Now, obviously, the singular is the best, but this is up there, and I think that that's a better use of my time and capital than going out and registering 10,000.
A bunch of yeah, definitely. It's more liquid. What did you pick that up for? Can you share, or it's private?
It was mid 5 figures.
Nice. I think it's a smart buy. Probably going to sell that for $500,000. Now you have an investment in the whole realm. Like you're rooting for it. Agentix is a great name. I don't think, and sometimes I even wonder: is it Agentic or Agentix that's going to take off? Who knows?
Probably both. Maybe both. Maybe neither.
Right.
My vote's neither. My vote would be just Agent by itself, but that ship has sailed.
Yeah,
Agent,
I
yeah.
would love to get agent.com. That would be nice.
Yeah, that's a 8-figure name. So you, in terms of go ahead,
Ish.
So in terms of playing the trends, that's your approach. You just try to go for the quality within a trend and catch that early. I love that strategy. What about pricing strategy? Like when a name fits your selection criteria, how do you compute what you sell it for? Or is it just a gut thing?
That's a good question. I have a little bit of a different opinion than most people when it comes to like retail value. I typically, obviously there are a lot of nuances, like the industry that it caters to, and who the possible buyers are for that name is obviously something that you're going to consider when you're pricing a name. Does the possible buyer have deep pockets or not? But I don't look at a name and think about, when I look at a name and I think about the value, I don't think about the retail value. I think about like what it's liquid for. And I think that is what I would consider the fair market value, is like what us, me, you, and the rest of the people that are familiar with this market would pay for the name. And then above that is above the fair market value, and it's basically who's willing to pay what I want for the name. And whether that's 3 times the market value or 10 times the market value is going to depend on the seller and the buyer, and that's it. The name itself is somewhat irrelevant to that equation. So I try to price my names, at least the mid-tier ones. We're talking like when you're purchasing a name for, let's say, $1,000 plus. I try to price my names 10 to 50x. Sorry.
He loved that strategy. Yeah. That's how you do it.
That's what I'm talking about. Hold on.
Get that money.
I'm eating good with that.
He's my man.
That dog's not eating.
That dog's a domainer.
He's eating fancy feasts with the 10 to 50x.
I told you 100x, not 50x.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
I love it.
You heard it here first. Josh is telling the people don't buy $5 Fridays. And
no, I don't think that's what he said.
Up all the.
I don't think. Well,
Josh, I see you. Josh, I see you had a hand rag that sold somewhat recently. Let me pull it up. It was growthinsiders.com that you sold a week ago, and you had registered a year ago. So tell us about that, and like, was that an exception to your rules? And did you have to hunt pretty hard to find that hand rag?
Oh, he's busted. He's been hand registering on the low.
Another misdirection from Josh.
I hand register. I hand register names. I do. I actually hand registered over 100 names yesterday.
Hey, Brandon, make sure you use that for the promo clip. That part right there.
On
We're,
it.
we're gonna lunch out on Saturday. Okay, go ahead.
And Brady, those names all included the word agent as well.
Oh, there you go.
Smart man.
So yeah, I would say like a year ago, I decided that I was going to like test out some hand registering. Again, it's not something that I'd done since maybe 10 years ago when I first started getting into domain investing. But again, the reason why I'm starting to do it now is because I think that I understand naming conventions better than, most people.
Skills.
And I actually think that the hardest thing in domain investing is hand registering .com domains. And that's why I wouldn't recommend it. Now, if you can do them well, and I'm not saying that I can, I'm saying that I'm testing that theory. So far I'm somewhat profitable, but again, it's pretty time consuming to go out and like get all these lists, narrow it all down, figure out like what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, get all the data and register these names. So there's a time component to it as well. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, growthinsiders.com, on the surface, you think about it, you're like, is that a good name?
It is.
Yeah, it's a good name. It's a good name, right?
Right.
So I probably found it on a recently dropped list among numerous others, and took a punt on it. Most of my stuff that I hand register is not like that. Most of it is, to be totally transparent with you, it's like a brand plus a what would you call it? Like a niche of some sort, like brand plus agent, or brand plus solutions, brand plus labs, brand plus lab, like these type of, what would you call those, like suffixes, would you say?
Right. That makes sense.
Brand plus suffix is typically what I do.
Right. Yeah, and I think if I can add to that, hand registrations, like you said, it's a skill issue. The more experienced you are in domaining, the better you get at it. Even the guys like Rick Schwartz has said they still hand register names. It's sort of like there's a dopamine hit when you search for hand registrations and you find something available.
Sure.
The pushback is, if all your names are hand registrations, you're probably assembling a horrible portfolio of names with very low odds of being profitable. So you have to sort of balance it out.
Yeah, I mean, you could be amazing at it, right? And
very few people are.
Yeah, but even if you are, and you register 100 tomorrow in the Unstoppable promo, you would be like killing it, absolutely killing it, if you sold one in a year, and most people would be not selling one in a year.
Interesting.
1%.
The only way you could sell more than one in a year, in my opinion, is outbound. If you outbound them, for sure. You know what I mean?
That's a completely different proposition altogether. Like anything that I talk about, by the way, in like a general sense, I'm talking about it from like
your approach,
from an inbound perspective, because I don't do any outbound. I think that if you have the ability, and I know that Ish is big on the outbound, to go out and outbound your names and take the time out of your day to make shit happen, then different equation altogether. Your sell-through rate should be much higher. In fact, you should be trying to sell just about every name that you register, right? I mean, really.
Right. I think the outbounding is going to be what separates newer domainers in terms of like how fast they get to profit. So it's definitely a good skill set to study. Marketing in general, right? It doesn't always have to be outbounding. If you're able to work on your name selection, right, and make them more visible and price them to sell, right? So you could have registered Growth Insiders, right? It could have been a hand registration, but I think you priced it to sell, right? If you put that name at $85,000, what are the odds of making it sell? Much much
Yeah.
lower, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, pricing them to sell is really where you have to work on that ego. And domain requires a lot of discipline. You know, you're going to be tempted to buy just about every name that comes to you, and you're going to make excuses for them in your head. Oh yeah, maybe Agentix with three S's could work, or German Agentix, or whatever. But just it requires discipline, and I think you should listen to people like Josh and others who have found success at it, to sort of like minimize the mistakes, because you will make mistakes.
Yeah, I agree.
Josh, curious if any recent developments in AI would have you reconsider this outbounding strategy. Like, are there new tools coming out or brokers that you've seen who are hustling harder than or using the latest tools to really scale outbounding and make it more economical? Like, is there anything you're keeping an eye on that would make you change your tune on outbounding?
I don't hate outbounding.
Just
I,
don't want to
I,
do it.
I yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea of like having a portfolio of names that someone else could outbound for me. I've actually explored that before, and if there's like an AI agent that is able to take over outbounding efforts on a set of names, then I think that's certainly something that I would entertain. It's not. It's not. It's not completely. It's not something that I think is completely unfeasible. But again, quality of the name makes a difference as well. I think geo, I think geo plus services type names are pretty good from like the hand registering standpoint in order to then being able to sell them.
Right.
Um, but like brandable type registration names and then going out and outbounding them, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, that's pie in the sky. Yeah, you definitely have to be intentional about what type of names you're buying if you're outbounding. You know what I mean? And I think, back to what you said about looking for names that have registrations and multiple CODs, I think those are great outbounding opportunities as well. Because all you're doing outbound, and at least my approach is creating awareness and visibility. Like, I don't always expect to make a sale. Like, I did an outbound yesterday for a guy. I bought this name with the intention to outbound it to him and others, right? The name is victoryprinting.com. So I was like, if I pick that up for $75, who knows? I might sell it for $2,000. But when I spoke with him, he offered me $200. Am I in profit? Yeah. Is that what I want to sell it for? No. But I feel like a lot of domainers sort of like leave that to chance, right? This guy would never know that name was available for sale. Now it's at the back of his mind, and maybe a follow up a couple of weeks later will get the deal done. So, especially for a newer domainer, I think outbounding, you need to sort of like understand that all you're doing is you're marketing your names. It doesn't mean, people confuse marketing and sales all the time. You know what I mean? Marketing leads to sales, but not always. You know what I mean? So, you can't afford to be more lackadaisical if you lack the resources. You have to put in more effort. Unlike someone like Josh, who's already, is cruising through this whole thing, just looking for more money to spend his better names to spend his money on. But if you're some guy out there in Morocco, or some college kid out there that really wants this to work, then you have to put in more work. And I think outbounding helps you level up.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I think that if you're trying to get into the industry, some form of outbounding is the way to do it. If it's not outbounding your own names, then it's finding a way to hustle and get in touch with someone that's going to let you outbound theirs, because there are people out there that would let you do that as well, as if you could prove that you're adequate and able to
Right.
do so in a professional manner.
Yeah. Well, guys, let's pivot to our last segment, which is taking some feedback for the audience. So, guys listening in, hop into the chat and share some of your recent acquisitions or some of your domains for sale that you're looking for feedback on. Add the price that you're listing those at, and we can go through them and give you some feedback and riff on some of the themes that we're seeing. And while people, add their submissions there, Josh, I know we had talked about earlier the recent sale of that domain. I forget exactly which
Growth
it was
Insider.
that was contentious. No. The other one that was this week.
Pandas.com.
That was
Oh, Panda and Pandas. Yeah,
yeah.
Pandas.
Give us the lowdown on that, and then let's talk about the varying opinions on that sale.
Yeah, I saw that Shane asked today. He wrote because I saw it got reported on Cedo, and I actually picked that name out of all of the names that got reported, and I kind of said like, wow, somebody undersold.
Hey, Josh, let us know when you go on vacation so we can double up and get our credit cards loaded, because that means there'll be more names freed up.
I'll be gone June, July, man.
Okay, good. That's the time to load up, man. You're picking everything up. But go ahead with the Pandas story.
I didn't buy it. I wish I did. But I saw Shane ask, what do we think about Pandas.com sale? Like good deal, bad deal.
How much did it sell for?
It sold for $12,000. And I think it's important to consider the fact that Panda.com is a monster name, like monster. Panda.com is like an 8-figure name. It's like
Correct.
I mean, I know the buyers of that name when it went on the market a few years ago, and I think they paid somewhere in the realm of like 600 for it, investors. And Pandas.com is far worse than Panda, right? Don't get me wrong, far worse. But there are numerous sports teams that are called the Pandas. And there are numerous companies out there that use the brand Pandas. I'm pretty sure the Pandas.io I stumbled upon. Grade, trade, insure, upgrade in seconds. Yeah. The AI agentic automation platform.
That's the name? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
The AI agentic automation plan. I can't even keep up with the words. That's pretty long.
yeah, I mean, I'm just, there are hundreds of companies out there that are using Pandas in their brand per the LinkedIn results. On top of that, Pandas is registered in 140 TLDs.
It's like the largest Python like data manipulation library as well. So it's a well-known name in the development space.
I saw that as well. Exactly. It's not for sale in that many other TLDs. I see it's for sale in .xyz. It's for sale in .app. Not for sale in .org. Not for sale in .ai. Not for sale in .io. Not for sale in .co. And like taken in all those in all those TLDs. Yeah. I mean, like, listen, you don't pick up one word like brands like that for $12,000. You just don't. Like, that's why I wrote on Shane's thing, like, I'll buy that name right now today for 20 grand, no problem, no questions asked. It's a great.
Let me ask you a question. But what about the opportunity cost, right? You're playing the game from a different perspective. You have more resources. If you had only 12,000, would you buy that name, or would you consider buying, let's say, 12 3-letter .ais that have multiple registrations? Would you go wider, or would you just double down on that one name?
No, I would if I would mortgage my home if I didn't have anything to buy Pandas.com at 12K because I know that I could sell it tomorrow for double or triple.
Right.
That's the only reason why, right? It's not because I want to hold it, but you've got to understand that
it's liquid.
There is a liquid market out there, and these type of names are liquid. Like, I think Drew paid, and he's talked about it on a Sherpa pretty recently. I think he paid like 40K for Badgers.com. Pandas is better.
Look, I was at NamesCon. I can't remember the name. Drew won a name at auction, and before we left the room, somebody else offered him more money. I think he made like 18 grand just for winning the auction. It doesn't get more liquid than that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like, that's why I say, like, if you have 12 grand, the best thing that you could possibly do is buy the most liquid domain possible that you could then sell to the next day for
more gunpowder. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And pandas is the perfect example of that.
Well, you're so in love with that name, aren't you?
Because those opportunities are like what I
Very
used to
rare.
kill for when I was like getting into the game in like 2016, 17, 18. It's like I would kill for those names.
So let's talk about how to find those opportunities. I think there's a new approach in domaining that I'm sort of like I'm realizing is how the big boys play it. Direct to consumer. You're going straight to those guys. You're not waiting on GoDaddy. You're buying it from retiring entrepreneurs or businesses that are folded. Adam does this very well. Like you're scouting names from some guy out there in Florida who had a business back in the 2000s, and and you're giving him 50,000 for
That's the truth.
panda.com.
That's the true outbound game, my guy.
Right, I know. Hey, check out what I'm doing. I just built a website called sellyourdomainname.com, and I'm coming for that game.
Yeah, that's it. Like that's where these domainer like multi-millionaires come from. It's like they're able to get like buy a name for 50 and then sell it to Drew or Brent for 200 and do that for a year, and
You're
then
good.
And then once they got a couple million, then they can start keeping the names for themselves and waiting for the big
Right.
sale.
Right, because there's a lot of inventory like that people they don't perceive the value as high as we do in our echo chamber.
Yeah,
and they're willing to part with the names if you hit the right number.
That's right, 100%. It's getting harder and harder to do because more people are doing it.
Right.
But let me tell you, it is hard. I'm not very good at it, to be honest. I've done it a little bit.
You're too direct. You got to do a little bit of ass kissing to get that.
You got to be a little bit. You got to have a little bit more finesse. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, do we have any names, Brady?
Yeah, so we've got a couple here in the chat. On-Chain Twin and onchaintwins.com, which are directly out of my mouth that Stefan has registered here. Again, I'm the last to the party in registering the names that I'm spewing all over this live.
I like On-Chain a lot. I like On-Chain. What's funny was my son actually hand registered On-Chain Storage, and it was one of the biggest learning experiences. I think I had an offer for 65 grand, and I foolishly declined it because at the time there was a company using on-chain.storage. And my researcher showed me, be patient. This could be like a 6-figure sale. And I don't think that, they've ever been back. Right? And I remember, Drew at the time saying, take the deal. And I really thought about it. But, I was so crypto rich. 65 grand just felt like a ripoff, even though I hand registered it. So that was a lesson in greed and controlling your ego.
Everyone has those lessons, man.
Right.
As well.
Right. So on-chain names are, I see a lot of people like registering those names, but there haven't been that many historical sales of on-chain names. You know what I mean? In my observation. But I guess this is one of those trends that people expect to blow up in the future.
Let's hope so.
Right.
If I sell onchain.dev, I'll promise to.
Now that's a good one. You know what I mean? On-chain Twin, I don't think it's a bad name. It just depends on what you price it for.
On-chain what? Twin?
Yeah, on-chain Twin.
Like we're twins?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I've been saying it in relation to, each domain transferred in gets an on-chain twin, like an NFT corresponding to the domain. But you could also see it being like, an agent twin of someone. It's like AI twin,
right.
Basically. So obviously it doesn't have the same connotation when you slap on-chain versus AI, but, still something interesting there.
There's a word for that. It's called physical and digital. But in the case of domains, they weren't physical in the first place. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, we see some on-chain names on NameBio here, but mostly 3 figures. Nothing too crazy.
Exactly.
Stacks on-chain in 2023 sold for 3,100. Onchain.ai for 2,300.
That's a steal.
2023. Yeah,
That's a steal.
that was
That's a six-figure name right now.
right.
Yeah.
Onchain.org in 2018. So that was super early.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they built a phenomenal platform with that, and they also offer you a Web3 dot on chain now, right? And I think what they've done 5,000 registrations through Unstoppable with dot on chain. I can see that becoming an ICANN CLD as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, potentially front running it by buying the Web3 version now. Let's see. MaritimeAccidentLawyer.com has apparently a crazy cost per click of $500. That's very specific. I'm not. I haven't been in any boating accidents recently, so I wouldn't know, but I believe it.
Yeah, it's so what are your views on exact match domain names, Josh? Do you play that sector or you avoid it?
I have played that sector and I'm now avoiding. It's just a tough sell. People want to use brands now, and they they aren't as concerned with owning the exact match for the industry or product that they're promoting or in business using. Yeah, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell.
Yeah, I think I mean I've had some luck with that, maybe because I do outbounding, but one of my most fun experiences in domaining was when I sold lemonlawlawyers.com for about 15 grand. And and I watched what they built with it. It was a lead generation site. And Michael Durash recently sold lawyersnearme.com for 100,000 on an LTO, and they built sort of like a lead generation site as well. So a lot of those names, lawyers near me and lawyer near me, so both of them. And so I think they're case by case. Something like maritime, lawyer, whatever. The keyword matters. I mean, that data matters, but you have to be able to explain that to somebody who cares. And that has to be a maritime attorney who is aggressively trying to acquire clients, and there are very few of those. And so hence, if you're buying a name like that, they're not just going to come buy it from you. You have to go connect with them and offer it to them at a reasonable price, leveraging that data, right? And just because something has a high cost per click doesn't mean that they're going to rank for the name, right? So you have to look at how hard it is to rank for those keywords as well. That's a big factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got rwafi.org here. That's a pretty solid name.
rwafi.org.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it, but what are your thoughts, Josh?
RWAFI.
Right. Real World Assets
Real
Finance.
World Assets FI.com.
.org.
.org.
Yeah. .com, like I can see it. It would be like maybe worth a punt. .org is probably just like one step too far. And like, don't get me wrong, .org is good especially in the crypto space, but FI is already like a shortener for finance, and RWA is an acronym in itself. It's just a little bit too much of a stretch.
What are your thoughts on?
Org, and you're saying basically like org implies nonprofit and FI does not. It actually implies the opposite, and that's the conflict that you're pointing out there.
Listen, no, I'm not saying that .org is like just nonprofits either. I'm more just saying that you've got an acronym in RWA, and then you've got another acronym basically in FI, and then you've got like a less than perfect extension.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this: what do you think about AIoutbounding.com and outboundingai.com? Hand registrations, by the way.
I think
the first is solid.
I think that if someone's going to create that kind of product, then it's great for that product, right? And I don't think it's completely I don't think it's completely unreasonable to think that a product like that is going to be built or is being built or
Oh,
has
they
been
do
built.
have them. They do have
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Any other names? Josh, what are some of your recent pickups?
Let's see.
So I like, by the way, I do like .org. I'm a sucker for a good .org. I recently bought a few good ones. Aura.org, Vida.org.
Oh, nice.
Those were like around 10 grand each ish.
Wholesale, you picked them up expired for 10 grand?
No, they were aftermarket buys, where I've made like offers on them. Maybe like negotiate with the owner a little bit because I felt like they're typically names that were priced at like maybe like 20K.
Right.
And I just feel like that's a little low from a retail perspective. So if they might, I'll reach out to them, make an offer, and see if I can pick it up for maybe what is considered slightly high wholesale, but I don't mind paying slightly high wholesale prices on really, really good SLDs in a top TLD like .org.
I fell in love with .org last year when I sold nouns.org for 50 grand.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like, I want another hit of that. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever pick up names on LTO?
Occasionally, I have done in the past. Yeah, I bought last year. I bought the beehive.com on an LTO just because it was available. It was like 60-month LTO.
Yeah, why not?
It's like, why not? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think actually like as an investor buying names on LTO, yeah, it makes sense.
Right. I just bought one yesterday for sure. I can't reveal the name yet, but it was I was like, I have to do it. I had to do it. It was on Huge Domains. It was my first time buying on Huge Domains. So.
Yeah. I actually did buy one from Huge Domains as well, a 24-month one, and I kind of regret it.
Why?
It was a trendy name. What was it? I've got it somewhere, so I hope I still got it. dsocial.com. DESOSCIAL.
Desocial. It's not a bad name.
Or like decentralized social, right?
Right.
That was like a big thing, like at one point.
It's definitely going to come back. It's a good name. It's a great name.
It's like, okay, I feel okay. Thanks, Ish. I feel better now.
Yeah, it's a great name for sure.
I don't know. How
and it's a brandable too.
Right.
I don't know how much I paid, but I think I paid enough where at the end of it, I was like, shit, I paid quite a lot for that.
That happens,
So,
all right, last two here. We've got armpits.com, True Domains novelty acquisition. What do we think? What do you think of these novelty names?
Armpits.com is a great name. I've told him he picked that up for $4 grand. Stole that name, in my opinion. The issue is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to build on it, or are you going to sell it? I think that name, it's limited in its scope, right? But it's a buddy part, right? There's a fetish angle to it. There's a medical angle to it. You know what I mean?
Ish is dropping alpha here. I didn't know about armpit fetishes. That's why people log on to this live stream.
There's an armpit fetish
information like that.
There's all kind of weirdos out there. Some people are like nostrils. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a world. This is the way of the world. People like feet. People like armpits. People like all kind of shit.
Armpits. That's some weird shit, man.
Dude, I did the research.
Is you a shaved or an au naturel armpit kind of guy?
I'm not into that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. You're just like, no, I just know from a friend. It's not actually my fetish.
There's a fetish. There's an armpit fetish. It's funny. My girlfriend sent me something yesterday about armpits. She said it was a post on Instagram she shared with me about how women get more relaxed when they smell a man's armpit that they love. It releases some sort of, chemical in their brain that relaxes them. Yeah.
Pheromones. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You got to
I know.
pass the pheromone test early on when you're dating someone. Otherwise, it doesn't bode well. They gotta love your stank, or else it's not meant to be.
And it calms them down
That's
if
how
they
it
love you.
works.
Yeah, it calms them down if they
Yeah.
love you. Yeah. You're like, man, I stink, it away from me. They're like, no, hold me.
Damn.
Ish got that stank. All right. Now we know.
So what do you think about
all right,
armpits.com?
Uh,
I want to hear Josh's view on this.
I'm honestly, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah?
But I haven't done the research, so I guess that could change.
How would you go about researching a name like that? Obviously, you'll check how many. Do you rely on just how many CLDs it's registered on? Is it the first impression? Is it a negative word? Armpits.
I think the first thing that I think is there's not going to be many brands called armpits. And my question would be: Is there a deodorant type angle to that? And
Old Spice is fun. They might acquire it. That would be on brand for them.
Armpits.com for your latest Old Spice. I can see that.
Yeah,
right.
That's the angle that I would look at in terms of like whether or not it may or may not be valuable. If there's something in that space, that would be my kind of my go-to.
Interesting.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought about the fetish space, but maybe.
He's not in the same corner as the internet that you are, Ish, but who knows? You got the edge there.
Give me a break, man. Yeah, like I think I can't remember what name it was that I have. It gets a lot of traffic. Yeah, it's feetheaven.com. And I know what they're coming for, right? And I was talking to somebody who's like, man, I'm into feet. There's websites where people look at, girls get paid to send feet pictures. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Feet heaven.
Well, there's a little slice of domaining out there for everyone, guys. That's the moral of the story here. Anyways, let's wrap it. Josh, thanks for coming on and sharing some expertise.
Amazing.
Yeah, go out there, guys, and don't register on $5.com Fridays. Or do.
That's
maybe you got the
I said that if you're a bowler and you know what you're doing, register away.
Correct.
Yeah.
I know someone who
This is the sobering conversation we want to hear here.
I know someone, shout out to Ed, who thinks he knows everything, is hilarious. That he doesn't want to go into auctions. He doesn't want to spend money on a good name. He just wants to hand register his way. And he pulls up all this crazy data that doesn't apply to the real world. Domaining is such a unique sport that, your name selection is going to make you or break you. And if you're really, really good at hand registration, which you never will know until you actually start selling some, I think you can do well taking other approaches to domaining as well. So it's not just a limited thing like I'm only going to hand register. You have to take a blended approach, right? So if you're good at hand registration, leverage that, but you should also be good at all the types of acquisition strategies as well.
Great.
Yeah. Wise words. Well, guys, come on through. We got $5.50.com transfers, as well as $1 XYZ Wednesdays. And you can take advantage of 3% commissions and self-brokerage at Unstoppable. So come on and try us out. And guys, we will catch you next week for the latest live stream. Anyway, Josh, Ish, thank you again.
It's my pleasure.
We will catch you next time.
Hey, thank you, Josh. Thanks for joining us. It was fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Bye, y'all.